Lisa. I am back today with another page where I want to use some things out of my stash. One of the things I really wanted to use this year were these wooden ATC cards from Prima. I bought 2 sets of these. One set had some larger ones in it, but most of them are the 3x4 size, so even if you don't have those kind of cards, this particular layout would work really well for like Project Life cards, or of course you could just always trim cardstock or chipboard or whatever down to that size. I'm going to do a grid kind of layout with these, and I just laid 4 of them out here on a piece of 12 by 12 paper just to see, you know, kind of how the arrangement that I wanted to use. I considered doing 6, but then they'd, you know, really be close together. I don't think they're not quite 4 inches. They're close to 4 inches. I could leave a little bit of space between them, but it would still be kind of crowded. I could do 2 more here, like that. That would be a nice arrangement too. But I think I just want to do a 4 square 2 by 2 arrangement for my layout. And I started on this before I picked a picture. I thought, okay, what picture do I have? What story do I want to tell that would go with these? And in going through my pictures, this is probably 2 years old, a photo of my husband at the beach that we always go to. And he's had some medical issues this spring, and things are going a lot better. But we're not going to get to the beach probably for a couple more months now, just because of the timing of things. It's not going to work out for us to go this summer, so it's probably going to be later in the year, which means we'll be playing the Dodge the Hurricane game in the fall. If you travel to the beaches and off the southeast coast after the 1st of September, you really have to make sure the weather's good. But anyway, so we're really looking forward to doing that, and I want to do a page about getting to that point. So this is almost more of an art journal kind of subject, but I don't art journal, so I'm going to do it in my regular 12 by 12 page. I want to do 3 cards and do the photo as one of the squares in my grid. So I need to pick out some cards. I have already picked out a background paper. This is Baja Breeze cardstock from Stampin' Up. It was the closest thing I had to matching this background that would give me something kind of sturdy, because I may do some misting and things on this, and I didn't really have a designer paper that I particularly liked with this anyway. Not that I had a whole sheet left up. So let's pick out some cards first, and now actually before we do that, let me talk also about other products that I want to use. This was my little box I made up of just samples of some of the things that I knew I wanted to work with this summer, and I pulled the one of these cards was down in the box, so I pulled that out because I knew I wanted to use that. I ended up with a mist sample in here. Also, I may do something with clouds, like some of those little clouds. I'm not going to use these. I would use the ones from Studio Calico, but I'll just lay that out to be sure. I might could put some pins. I could put a lot of embellishments on these little cards. I need some titling, of course, for the page, and I really haven't decided for sure on a title. I've got some thoughts, so I think I'm going to take these and see what I can do with those. I know I want to do some flair. Might do some of those. I don't see stamping going on this page, so we'll put those aside, and first thing we'll do is we'll pick some cards. So what goes good with this photo?
So the first thing I did was pull out the cards that, I rejected a few of the cards that have flowers and things on them, and then I looked for the cards that had some of the sayings on them rather than being the all over prints. Kind of put those together because I'm not going to use more than one of those. And I narrowed it down to 2. There was one that I really liked the wording, but it just didn't show up that much, and so I ended up with the hearts. The funny thing is, I ended up with the ones that I had picked to begin with, even though after I went through them. But still, it's fun to go through and shop. I'm one of these people who likes to look at all the fabric choices and all the paper choices and all before I make a decision. Now, if I didn't like the packaging on these letters before, I really didn't like it when it popped open, or I opened it and it sort of exploded on me and all the letters came tumbling out. So they are not going back in that package. I am putting the letters out alphabetically to see what I have. And some of them I end up having to turn around to kind of figure out what letter is what. Because it looks like I've got a lot of D's up there, but some of those could be the letter P. So I move a few things around, and then I'm going to use what letters I have and see what I can spell. I had some ideas already on what I wanted to say on this page, and it's going to be kind of a long title, but I'm just kind of seeing what I have and how I can make them work. I had my C's and U's mixed up, but I got them straightened out. And I have enough to do the back too, and I could have made, I think, beach, but I didn't want to use beach for some reason. I don't know, I was just looking for a different word, and I had two E's, so I decided to use Eden, because that's what it feels like to us. Or I think I wanted to say paradise. I didn't have the letters for paradise. So, so that's what led me to the word Eden. And then I take the rest of those letters and put them in this divided box that I have, where I have letters just by, you know, all the A, B's together, all the C, D, and so forth. So they're divided out that way, and that's what happened to the remaining letters. Now I know I want to use some of these other embellishments, and I go fishing around for more different kinds of flair and things, and I thought I would trim down my photo with the corner rounder, and I accidentally did the 1/2 inch. That's not what I intended, but it's okay. It's say an older photo. I'm not going to go back and hunt the original and try to reprint it. We're just going to go with it like that. One piece of flair says yesterday and one piece says tomorrow, and since the photo was a yesterday photo and we're looking forward to tomorrow, I went with those two. These are the Studio Calico sun and clouds that I had in mind. These are very new to me. I got these at Tuesday Mornings on clearance. I have a lot of those mistables from Studio Calico, and you can paint them. You can do a lot of different things with them. You're going to see a different way of coloring them here shortly. I spent a lot of time fiddling around with my title and figuring out where it needed to go. I was going to split it up, and I finally decided I really wanted it all together down towards the bottom of the layout. The one thing I'm not real thrilled with as I looked at this was the background paper. That blue just sort of was taken over, and I wasn't sure what color I was going to do with the letters. But I did find a stamp that I thought would look good, which was kind of a surprise to me. It was in my little pack, and we'll get to it in a moment. I also thought that if I didn't use the blue background, I might could use some of my jelly prints for behind some of the photos to make a mat, or the photo and the little squares to make a mat. So I have one here that it was kind of, very often I end up using the ones where I've just sort of rolled off the extra paint, and this is one of those, and it has some really pretty orange paint and some blue-green paint, and one of those had a sheen to it. So I trim it down, and I'm going to come back with one that's just a little bit bigger than the squares. There'll eventually be a sketch that goes with this, probably for next year's sketchbook. I just didn't do one ahead of time, and I decided to go back to white paper. Now before I start gluing things down though, I do think I'll do some misting with the white paper. So just kind of getting an idea of how things are going to lay out. Now I have this mist that was in the one that was in the box is a new mist from Prima. It's a dark teal color, and as I went through my samples, I also had one from Studio Calico called Sky, and I just liked the Prima one a little bit better, and I used that mist on a craft project the other day, and boy does those spray bottles really do spray good. What I hadn't really noticed though is how dark this is. My sample shows it lighter, and I sprayed it, I let it dry. The only thing I can figure out is that when I did the sample, I must not have shook the bottle up good, and it came out really light. So the mist is actually a dark teal color, and it's just darker than I wanted. So I did another sample, it's still dark. So I just flipped this paper over and went back to the Sky color mist. So the teal will be used for something else later on. When I did it on that craft project the other weekend, I was doing the color over other color, and I just hadn't noticed that it really is darker. I'm misting there so that the mist is sort of coming out behind the mat. Now for the letters, I'm using a trick I learned from Wilna Furstenberg, which is to paint the letters in gesso, any kind of chipboard. Paint over in gesso. This works for like printed chipboard if you want to just, you know, cover it. You can do that. and you can kind of glob the paint on, that's okay. And then you go over your gesso with watercolors, and it makes a really pretty, fun finish to them. So I just did various shades of oranges and golds and maybe a light brownish tone here for my letters. And I decided to do all the words in the same color. I didn't even organize the letters. I just sort of laid them out there in whatever order they were in and painted them. And I straightened them out whenever I got ready to put them on the mat. Now, one thing that kind of was a happy accident, while I had the watercolors out, I decided to go ahead and do the sun, since I had yellow, and then the clouds. And this is, I think, now my favorite way of doing these mistables. It's less mess than mist, and you get to really control the color, and it's just the watercolors just go in beautifully. This little experiment I didn't care for. One of the challenges I've had with these cards is coloring them. I've tried several different things. I can't remember off the top of my head now what all I've tried for sure. I'm not sure I've tried watercolors. I should probably try that. But markers just do not work. And I should have learned that on the first card. I ended up doing 2 of them. I tried taking some of that color back off or maybe muting it a little bit. That didn't work. So what I'm going to end up doing is covering my mistakes here in a few moments. But I was experimenting, and I decided just to go ahead and leave that video in here, even though it wasn't exactly a success at all. Now I'll soon be gluing those things on. But in the meantime, I got to figure out how to cover up my mistake up there. And I really wanted the sun kind of off the top. So what I end up doing is just flipping that card over, and I'll come up with something else to cover the places where I colored in. And I can put some ribbon over the one on the chevron card. So that's a good place for the yesterday flare. And I can go ahead and glue this down. And here we go again with something that didn't work well. When you're videoing, it's you know, of course you want to try to keep your head out of the way, which I'm not doing a very good job of here, but it's hard to do things really straight if you can't get your head over the top of it. That's my excuse. Anyway, I didn't get the thing on there straight. So I ended up taking it up and redoing it, and using a ruler to straighten it out. And my camera cut off in here. I ran out of space on my camera, so you don't see me repositioning it exactly, but in the next video segments, yeah, I'm doing the ruler to straighten it up. But anyway, so I got on there nice and straight, and I'll use hot glue to put those cards on in a few moments. In the meantime, we're decorating the cards up, looking at my blue ribbon, and this is one that I was kind of surprised about. It's a blue-green. This is, oh, what do they call that, where the colors fade into each other? I've had this ribbon so long, I don't even think that stuff was in style when I bought it. But anyway, I've got that kind of look going on here. And I just, to see if it would work, I decided to try to stamp directly on the card. Now, it's a pretty busy card with that chevron, and that chevron design is etched in. It's not printed on. And it didn't look bad with the archival ink. However, it wasn't the best. And I happened to have some vellum laying on my table. So I just grabbed some of that and stamped on it, and I'll glue that over the top of the card. Now, I do have to let that dry a little bit, because when you stamp on vellum, no matter what kind of ink you use, it's wet, and so you have to give it a little bit of time. So once it dried a little bit, then I just folded and tore, and then I'll end up adding just a little bit of glue behind some of the letters and putting that on. A little glue in small doses, as long as it's like over the writing, or in this case under the writing, it doesn't show, and that's all it takes to really hold the stuff in place. I found a small little heart that I can put in the True Love one. And what I was doing with coloring those other cards, I was trying to see if I could color those hearts. Definitely not. So I did not mess with those. Don't have any more of those cards. So I did look for some different twines. And I finally remembered one I had from Lawn Fawn. Not that first one I got out, but one that's a multicolored, that's in the same color family as what we're using. So I'm going to tie a little bow of that on, and we'll be ready to glue these cards in place. And I'm just going to glue the letters with Tombow adhesive. I think hot glue is probably about the only thing, maybe dimensional adhesive, but those are about the only two things I could think of that would really hold these cards down good. And then just a little bit of Tombow for the, oh, I meant dimensional adhesive. Dimensional or hot glue would be about the only thing that would hold them down. Okay, this is an old Creative Memories template that I'm using to mark lines with a pencil for my journaling. And I will leave the pencil lines in place. I won't try to erase them. And I'll journal on that later on. I am going to add some little dots here because I needed some more blue color down there. So I did put a few on there, and then I decided I would put enough to underline the word back.
For the page, I was able to use quite a few things out of my sort of go-to box here. I used the stamp set here, and I did some flair. I did a couple of things of flair that I knew I wanted to use some of my flair. I wanted to use some clouds, and I ended up using the mistable ones with watercolors that worked really nice. I really, really like that. These letters were in the box. They were from the Maya Road pack, and I just used a whole bunch of them and got to use some of my watercolors there as well. And I also worked in some enamel dots, which I think I might need to straighten just a little bit. I'm going to put the journaling on after I make the photographs because it's a little more personal content for this page. And that is my page. Oh, and what else was I going to say? Well, I used the jelly plate background and some of that mist that I had in this sample, and it did. Now this is a different one. I didn't use the one from this one. I used the sky mist. But anyway, got a lot of fun things on the page, and a nice way to use these cards up or anything where you had a 3x4 cards that you wanted to arrange. So thanks for joining me on this journey. It was a little more back and forth on getting this page done, but I really like it, and I'm going to love having it up in my scrap room to remind me of our goal of getting back to the beach later in the year. Thank you again. Bye.